a total fail.
Yeah, across the board, it's a challenge.
Yeah. So. And you know, I mean, we have the position that, I mean, it's nobody's fault, right? I mean, I see some of the families trying to fight with the school, but it's not their fault either. So we all trying to do our best.
Rebecca, do you hear him right now? That's the essence of Dr. Muotri. I feel you. Keep being you. I love you. I love the way you are. I swear, it's been too long.
We just started recording. I'm definitely keeping that in the recorded version.
All right.
Okay, I'm gonna start letting people in. Right now, we have 10 people in the waiting room. We have about 20 people who will be showing up today.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, guys.
I was just talking about you, Jeff. There's Jeff from the East Coast from the panel at the last Neuroscience conference. Hi, Glenn. I haven't seen you in a while.
Hello. How are you?
Great. Nice to see you on here.
Oh, good to see you also.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Happy Wednesday. I'm going to go ahead and get started and have add people in as they come in. We have a really great group today and a very, very special guest speaker. So a couple of Zoom rules, although I know you're probably all used to it by now, but we have a Zoom please mute yourself when you're not speaking. We recommend speaker view for presentation. Sharing your video is optional, though we love to see all your friendly faces. And then we will have a Q&A that's about 10 minutes at the end. So if you would like to comment or ask questions during Dr. Muotri's presentation, feel free to use the chat feature. I will be moderating that close to the end. A quick update from Autism Tree. We have now reached over 485,000 people through our social media channels, which is an incredible milestone for us. Thank you so much to everybody who has been following us since shelter in place in March. These are our numbers through Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We have been able to reach this many people nationwide, which is a beautiful thing, I think, that we've taken out of during this challenging time. Our posts have been shared over 805 times, which is incredible, over 800. Thank you for sharing all of our content and our videos. We now have 296 impact videos on our YouTube channel, so please subscribe today if you haven't gotten a chance. It's really easy, takes a minute. 247 of those videos we have posted since March 12th. Big thank you to all of our program managers, volunteers who have been consistently sending in videos each week. We do post them daily. We have a couple of reading of video series on our YouTube channel. You can see it in our bi-monthly newsletter that actually just went out this morning, and on our website. We have a couple of Reading with Autism Tree, which is where we have our volunteers read a children's book for our kids and families. We've now posted 90 videos to date and reached over 42,000 people. And we have also provided over 172 virtual events to date and have 21 events coming up between now and the end of November. And we're consistently adding programs and virtual events as well. We now offer 19 of our 20 programs to date. 18 of those are virtual every week. I'd say we have about 5 to 7 events, so there's lots to get involved in. Please definitely reach out to me if you would like to learn more. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to our co-founder and volunteer executive director, Dana Hoff, who will be introducing our special guest today.
Hi, ATPF family. It's so nice to be here with you and see some of you that I haven't seen in a while. Every week, you know, we spend a little time on the pre-call with the speaker, and it was quite a gift already to be with Dr. Muotri today, and I can't wait for him to spend time with you. So I'm going to jump right into our question today. And we love hearing your voice, and so if you haven't done this before, we do a follow-up email after the Lunch and Learn, and we include your comments on questions like this so we can kind of bring your own personal voice and thoughts alive. What is the #1 way we can make a substantial difference? Well, when I look at this question for myself, I say the substantial way that our team makes a difference every day is we work really hard to lead with love. And the kind of the current of Autism Tree that you feel is our heart connection that we have with each other. But our team really strives each day to make all of our decisions leading first with love. When I think about Dr. Muotri, I just can't say enough about his essence and how he inspired me to ask this question. And the way that I'm touched by Dr. Muotri, he makes a substantial difference in a global way, and you'll hear that directly from him today. But for me personally, what I connect to him on always, and it happened again before we started today, is he is such a born uniter. And I can't even think of anything that is more important in our world today than someone who brings people together. It doesn't matter what we bring up. I was talking about all the different types of people that come on Lunch and Learn, and he just lit up and was just like, this is great. And he just always brings people together. And it is a gift. I mean, especially I think in the world that Dr. Muotri runs in, which is an incredibly competitive environment of scientists that are competing to get money for what they're studying. And yet he naturally, just I feel, brings out the best in whatever group he's with and brings them together. And I'm so blessed by him for that reason. It just lights me up when I'm with him because I see it happening every single time I'm doing anything with him. And it happened already today, just talking about things that we're going to be working on together, and even just him sharing today with you guys. I always show a short video, Dr. Muotri, and I picked this one out because I thought it was a really elementary way of just showing creativity versus innovation, which you are just absolutely a rock star in globally at a really scientific level, but this is taking it right down to the basic level. It's a short video, and I wanted to show it really quickly. Thank you guys again for just sharing this number 31 Lunch and Learn, 31 weeks of shelter in place, and I'm very, very proud of each week what we learn together. I hope you like that video. When I watch it, I think of Dr. Muotri and how he's done so many incredible things that mean a lot to me as a parent, like his tooth fairy study, which instead of taking blood samples for the work that he was doing with children, he was using their teeth. And as a parent, I just thought, wow, why don't they do more of that type of thing related to research where it's less invasive for the child and less traumatic? Dr. Muotri is always thinking of things in such unique ways and also implementing them, which is the innovation part of it. And we're so blessed that he's right here in our San Diego community and the chairman of our neuroscience conference that we've done now for 5 years. I love this quote for you, Dr. Muotri. Innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower. And clearly, it's undisputed that Dr. Alysson Muotri is a rock star in the neuroscience world and is also just so much fun to be with, which you'll experience today. When we looked back at all of our work together, we're going to pull up some photos from the Autism Tree memories. And if you see here, this is all the way back in 2013, which is when we had just finished doing our tenure at the Hard Rock Hotel, and Lisa came on full time. So we looked back and we started working. It took us 2 years to work together to create our first neuroscience conference. So if you look at the top, that is Lisa and Dr. Muotri over where he works at the Sanford Consortium at Bella Vista, which a lot of you know Amanda, who owns Bella Vista, has been a wonderful community partner. We actually met her and Dr. Muotri at Bella Vista's 1-year anniversary, which is 2013. And it's amazing what we've accomplished since then. If you look at the picture next to it, that's actually Amanda on the far end to the left. And I'm not sure who is next to her. And then it's Dr. Goldstein, who wrote Stem Cell for Dummies, and myself, and then Roger Bingham, who's the moderator of our neuroscience conference. And if you go to the one next to that, we're at Dr. Levy's office. Dr. Michael Levy has always been right there with us in the planning of the neuroscience conference and all the research we've done over the last 16 years. And then we're at the consortium where Dr. Muotri works, which many of you have been to when you're at the conference. And that's in a meeting that we had. You see Dr. Novak in the front with Kara Dodds, Lisa, me, Roger, Dr. Muotri, and I cannot see who's next to him clearly in that photo. But you get a sense of how long we've been together. And if you look at the bottom, we've got Dr. Muotri and Roger, who are such a dynamic duo. Dr. Muotri is our chairman and Roger Bingham is our moderator. And if you haven't met him, they're just a really dynamic duo together at our conference every year. And tomorrow we're going to start working on our 2021 conference, and we're so excited about it. And in the next photo, I think Garrett is in that photo and Joel. This next slide, these are all just meetings that we had. It takes us through all the different neuroscience conferences we've done, which we've done 5 of them. So you can see year by year. And this year, of course, our COVID-19 year, we didn't get to do a conference. And so we're going to be thinking about how 2021 might be some kind of combination of in-person and Zoom. And I love this one so much because on the pre-call, I was saying to Dr. Muotri, I think that's honestly the first time I met Dr. Muotri and his beautiful wife, Andrea, and their son. Right there in that far left photo is at our first JetBlue event at the airport. I just love that photo. And the other ones with me and Dr. Muotri's beautiful wife and son at the Meet the Neuroscientist Day. And there's a beautiful family picture of them at the beach when we do the Bridges to the Beach week. I just love all these family pictures. One of my favorite things in 16 years, the last 2 photos on the bottom are to the left are of them at the Padres game, and Garrett has worked many Padre games for Autism Tree, and he came home one night and he was just bouncing up and down, so proud of Ivan. He was just like, Mom, you're not going to believe it. He had seen from Dr. Muotri and his wife bringing their son Ivan to the Padre games, he was able to stay longer and more innings as time went on, and he had seen that Ivan made a huge, substantial jump in how much time he got to stay at the Padre game. And he was just so excited and proud of him, and I'm proud of their family. And it's one of my favorite memories of times where I felt like Garrett grew so much from being so close to families and seeing their progress. And this was a really historical day for Autism Tree at the San Diego Children's Museum. And Dr. Muotri brought in his lab of neuro that works for him. And there's like 17 of them. I'm not sure how many you have right now working with you in your lab, Dr. Muotri, and how it works during COVID. But all of them there on the far left, it was so phenomenal. And I know that our board members, both Linda and the far left below with Dr. Muotri and Dr. Michael Levy in the next photo with the little boy in the wheelchair, had like really seriously aha moments of like how it could be to see children and have them get therapy and have their siblings play in an environment that's more like a children's museum. So they're not waiting for their sibling in a waiting room while they're getting, say, speech therapy or occupational therapy. And so by doing Meet the Neuroscientist in the Children's Museum, it just really kind of let everyone see something from a different angle, like Dr. Michael Levy at the Children's Museum. That was one of his patients that's in the wheelchair. And he hadn't really ever been out at a museum and just playing with a patient like in a more normal environment. He always sees them at Rady Children's Hospital. So it was, you can just see in the far right bottom corner, Dr. Levy and Linda Townsend and Dr. Muotri and I, they're just so happy. It was like that moment where you're like, wow, we could do things different. And Dr. Muotri is really going to be sharing a lot about his vision with neurodiversity and things that he's been working on. And once again, I just want everyone to know how much Dr. Muotri has meant to me and Todd and Garrett personally, and the absolute vision that he brings to the foundation is, well, it honestly exceeded my prayers and dreams of doing a neuroscience conference. I just knew I wanted to do it to bring amazing scientists like Dr. Muotri to have a heart connection to the children and families that they're doing the research on. So here, Dr. Muotri will tell you he had a lab of 17 people doing autism research. None of the people in his lab, until we did the first neuroscience conference, had ever met someone with autism. And as a parent, that was just crazy to me to think there's these amazing researchers, yet they don't really have a relationship with children and families with autism, and they're studying and trying to solve the issues. So one of the things that happened after our first neuroscience conference was beyond my imagination. Is Daniel Soto was 10 years old, and he kind of had his headphones on the whole neuroscience conference because it's a long day. And then he was actually on the panel, and he heard Dr. Muotri talking about mini brains in his lab that he's creating. And so the conference was in November. We always do an annual meeting. So it was January or February. Dr. Muotri came in late to our program managers meeting where everyone reports on their program. And Daniel had been playing with clay. And he jumped up when Dr. Muotri came in to the annual meeting, and he had made him a mini brain. And he said, Dr. Muotri, I made you a mini brain, and I want to come to your lab. And that was everything. That was it. I mean, it's like the heart connection between the scientist and the child, it was far, far beyond that, because Daniel was running to him and had a gift for him that was based on what he learned from him and wanted to go to the lab. I mean, and then when we all went to the lab with Daniel, I don't know if Dr. Muotri will share his perspective, but mine was just Daniel was rapid fire, talking to the people that were showing us around in the lab with Dr. Muotri. Had so many questions to Dr. Muotri, and just I think all of us we grew from the experience. And the experience was having Autism Tree children and families more infused with the researchers doing the work. And so like I said, Dr. Muotri's essence is that he, not only is he brilliant and a top neuroscientist, but he leads with his heart and he brings everyone together. And I just feel I'm really blessed by that. And I want to thank everybody for sharing this moment with Dr. Muotri. And if you haven't met him, I hope you do in the future at our 2021 Neuroscience Conference. Big love to you, Dr. Muotri. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks so much, Dana. That was really great. Thank you so much. I mean, I think we started with really not knowing exactly where we are going by putting neuroscientists and families together. But I think we create something new. That's innovation, right? I mean, it's not only the idea, but the implementation. I love it. Thanks for sharing that video and for sharing all these nice moments. Ivan was so tiny when we started, and I shared the same impression as Garrett. I mean, he really improved, and by going to this Padres game all the time, he was learning how to behave. He was learning what he can and cannot do it. So he definitely matured his brain, and that requires practice. So I mean, you guys allow us to do this kind of practice. So thank you so much for all these years and all these activities. I think you guys are champions on the level of activity and kind of a spectrum of things that people can do, trying to include everybody. That's fantastic. It's really role model. And now, I mean, I feel that this neuroscience conference, I was hoping that we would let more of the families know what's going on, but I would never expected that we'll receive some ideas or feeding from the families and the autistic individuals in our research. To me, that was a breakthrough moment. So I'm so happy that we have this opportunity. This year, find a way to continue. I mean, if it's not going to be in person, we'll find fun ways to do it virtually, or a mix, a hybrid system. We don't know. We'll have to be creative and innovative to put this together. But I'm anxious to start working on this. I think we should keep doing it. So what I decided to do is briefly share two things with you guys. One is an update of the research, and the other one is this idea of a non-traditional academic path for the neurodiverse community. So let's start with the research. I think Dana mentioned very clearly that my lab develops molecular and cellular models for autism with the goals to understand how autism appears or emerges in the brain, and also use that to find better treatments, especially for the ones who are more severely affected, who desperately need some help. So these are the two major goals in the lab. And we do that by creating human models. We know from all the scientific evidence right now that autism has a strong genetic factor. And this genetic emerges during the embryonic period. So everybody who is autistic was born autistic. You do not acquire autism through life. So, but that poses an interesting challenge, which is how can we understand how autism emerges in the brain if it happens in uterus, since we don't have access to the embryonic fetal brain in uterus. So we have to do something else. I mean, people have been using mouse models or studying different different other models that are non-human, and trying to extrapolate from these models to understand autism. My take, and I'm not alone on this, is that autism, it's human specific. We don't see that in other species. It's only from our species. And I think there is a reason for that. I think it's an evolutionary trade-off between the evolution of our cognition and the chances for something to go wrong. So those things happens hand to hand. Is the same analogy can be made with a car. If you take a car that is all electric, super fancy, most likely there is going to be like small problems that's going to happen here and there, and something that is fully mechanic, simpler model might last longer. So I think the human brain is it's on this balance. So going back to the model that we use stem cells, and these are cells that are derived from humans, where we reprogram the cells so they acquire the pluripotent or embryonic identity. They turn into stem cells. And from those stem cells, we can actually guide them to neuralize or to become models of the human brain. That's why we call them mini brain. It's not the perfect name because it gives you the impression that you actually have a miniaturized brain in the lab. It's not quite, but it definitely recapitulates some of these aspects, especially the genes that are expressed on autism. That's why we focus on that model. So the idea it is to create these mini brains, I mean, from people who have autism and neurotypicals and compare the neurodevelopment. And we are learning lots of things. We are learning what kind of cell types are affected. We are learning how the neuronal network is formed. And we are learning what are the therapeutic possibilities that we can have. For example, one thing that seems to be very attractive these days, especially for the syndromic types of autism, Fragile X, Rett syndrome, Angelman syndrome, is the possibility of a genetic correction when the person, so you can correct the mutation or the defect directly into the brains of these people, and at least, I mean, as far as we can tell, we should observe a reversible of some of these defects. So that's very attractive from the therapeutic perspective. And this is moving really fast. We have the clinical trial for Angelman syndrome going on right now. Rett syndrome is most likely the second one that we will get in, and then will come a bunch of others. So here you go. I mean, the importance of having like your genome sequence to know what kind of genes are affected. That's why, I mean, so many people focus on this genetic aspect. This has nothing to do, I mean, sometimes I see people making that confusion with eugenic approaches or something, let's eliminate autism. You cannot genetically eliminate autism. That's a wrong concept. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to help people who need. So as long as people have this very clear in mind, I think we can move forward without creating too much debate on that. So we use those approaches, the mini brain, to really prove of concept that this can be done before we actually test in the person. So that's why I think is attractive. You don't have to try and error in a person. So we can do that in their personalized mini brains. So in the future, I imagine that all future clinical trials will happen in the lab first. So we're going to learn, I mean, what's going to happen if there is any side effect. What are the doses? What kind of a reversion can we expect? And then based on that, moving to real people, real clinical trial. So that's in a nutshell what's going on. I mean, of course, COVID slowed us down, but did not stop us. So we continue the research. We have to follow several rules. The density of researchers in the lab. By the way, we now are 32 researchers. But we have to spread out people. We have to take shifts, things like that. And but the research continues. The slow paced continues. Let's hope that a vaccine or some kind of a better treatment will appear, will emerge in the next month, and we can get over this and go back to what we used to call normal. So that's one side. The other side, and this is totally inspired by my communication with ATPF, is this idea of how can we tap into the neurodiversity knowledge. And so over the years, since the first neuroscience meeting to the last one that we had, what's becoming clear is that the private companies they already realize how important it is to have in their team people who are from the neurodiversity background, who does not follow the neurotypical pathway. So some kids have extraordinary abilities that are really clear to see. I think, autism is a great example because we have so many examples on autism. People who have the perfect ear, who can play musical instruments really easy, good memory, can memorize lots of things, can program, can use a computer in better ways than any neurotypical, or at least a neurotypical person will take years, and someone with autism who has that ability might do it very spontaneously. So that's a hidden talent. And I feel that private companies are realizing that, and now they need those talents on their portfolio. So I think they started by doing that as a way to help the community, and now they need them. So I think this neurodiversity community has so much to offer to some of these companies. So I love, for example, when Elon Musk, he was hiring for his company, both on Tesla, Neuralink, or any other company, and he said, I don't care about your diploma. I just want to know if you can do the job. So he's basically saying, I really don't care if you go to any university, if you have a formal treatment, a formal academic background. He doesn't care. He cares if you can do the job. And I feel that they are so much in advance compared to the academic pathway. So for someone to get a PhD in neurosciences, they need to sit in a classroom and take several disciplines. They need to go to a specific group learning exercises. That might be quite difficult for people with autism and basically any other disorder or neuro condition. But those people might achieve the same goals as any neurotypical that follows this traditional pathway. So what I'm proposing to UCSD, and I start to have the discussion with the leadership, which was really welcoming on this idea because nobody thought about that before, is to have a non-traditional academic pathway for the neurodiversity community within UCSD. So how would this work? So the first step is really matchmaking. So let's see what are the talents, what are the abilities that we can tap on, and we should approach that totally unbiased. I'm not looking for someone who knows how to compute or to program. I'm looking for any kind of talent, and I'll give you examples. I think in one of the ATPF meetings, someone mentioned, my child knows how to do puzzle in 3D, and he's really good because he has this three-dimensional ability to take a small piece and put in the puzzle with like 4,000 pieces in there, and he knows exactly where it goes. But how can he help? So other people, I hear that they love to fold shirts. What kind of talent of that? How can we use that in academia? So now I'm asking my colleagues in academia, for them, what kind of problems you need to solve where these abilities that might be required. For example, the three-dimensional piece, maybe medicinal chemistry requires this kind of a three-dimensional orientation of the molecules to find a perfect target. We are working with COVID now. We are developing drugs that targets the polymerase of the COVID. When I see that, I can only think in two dimension, but the molecule is floating in a solution in 3 dimension. So if someone can see that and doesn't need any kind of a software to do that, that's a big advantage. Maybe we can use this kind of thing to help on the academia. So basically, the first step would be this matchmaking. Can we find abilities that are unrecognized and match with the scientific community? And then is the development part. So once you find the match, how can the two parts will work together to achieve something that will be recognized as, for example, a PhD or a master thesis at the university? Can that person with that ability, no matter what, achieve the same level, academic level, as a neurotypical that follows the traditional career? The diploma to that person, if it achieves the same, if everybody in a blinded way, so you present the final result to a group of academics, and you say, so if you see that and you don't know who did that work, would you give a master or a PhD degree? And if these academics said yes, then the person deserves a PhD and don't have to follow any step of the trajectory. So that's how I envision it. So that would we would incorporate a pool of talent from the neurodiversity background inside academia, which I think we desperately need, because we are stuck in a 100-century-old model that does not allow anybody who thinks in a different way to participate on science. So if we can implement that, and I know it's not going to be easy, I think it's going to be a game changer. And I think the whole world will benefit by having the contribution of people from the neurodiversity background. So that's the two things that I have to say. I would love to be back on both on the science as well as in this non-traditional academic pathway. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Muotri.
And I can see the chat here. If you don't want to say anything, you can chat.
Yes, wonderful. Please, I'm opening it up to everyone who wants, if you want to ask a question, you can feel free to unmute yourself, or you can type it in the chat and I'd be happy to read it for you. I have a question just to start us off. Well, first off, I want to say how inspiring it is to have you as both a father and a rock star neuroscientist involved in our community. It's really, thank you for breaking it down and making it easier for us to understand what you're doing for the autism community. And I think it's really inspiring that you're so passionate about having someone with autism be at the same level of success as someone who's neurotypical. And with that, I'd love to ask if you have any advice for any students who are studying neuroscience or they want to get into your field. What would it be? What are your two, maybe a couple tidbits of advice that you would give to them?
Yeah, I think really the first stage is to read as much as possible. And that's how I got into neuroscience. And I think what you're going to find, and that's the biggest surprise, is that we don't know much. So it's kind of an unexplored field. And we don't know much, especially on the human brain, because we have access to it. So, I mean, finding ways to really study the brain that nobody has thought about it is really important. So I think that might be like a first start. Start reading about it. Read everything about the brain, or watch videos of neuroscientists or about science and neuroscience in general. And you start noting the major questions that you have. So when you meet someone who can tell you the answers of those questions, if they know, you already have it in handy. So that's how I would say, start reading and figuring out. I mean, even when we say neuroscience, the field is very diverse. I mean, you can be at one level and doing like cognitive neurosciences, and you can be like me at the molecular level, looking at the genetic aspect. You have to find more or less where what is more attractive to you.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I know I had the pleasure of meeting you at your lab and doing a walkthrough with one of our other kids and families Billy Peters and his mother Karen this last year. That was the first time that we walked through it together and got to explore your lab and seeing all that you do. We also, I don't know if anybody else knew this, but Dr. Muotri has worked hand in hand with NASA. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about that if you would like to.
Yeah. So one question that I had on my team was about the development of humans in space. And this, again, I mean, was inspired by reading science fiction. So I team up with a colleague at UCSD. His name is Eric Vire, and we start talking about these ideas. I mean, he had some kind of astronaut training. He was ready to be an astronaut, but then he decided to become an MED. And then we start talking about, I mean, can the human brain really develop in space? It started, I mean, as a fun idea. But since we have the model, we thought, well, what about we send some of these mini brains to space so we can learn what happens to the human brain over there. So turns out that NASA was also looking at that because we know that the space environment, either or both microgravity as well as radiation, really impact how the astronauts' brain function. So they become with fatigue, they show signs of aging, and this is problematic for space colonization, for example, because it takes like 3 years to go to Mars, 3 years to come back. How would you make sure that the cognitive integrity of the astronaut is intact so he can perform all these sophisticated actions? So we need a way to preserve the brain in space so it doesn't go into this decline cognition. So that's one of the idea, and then I mean we kind of extrapolate these and say, well, I mean if those things actually happens in space, maybe we can use to learn how disease happens here on Earth. For example, the aging aspect I think is fascinating. If you go to space and stay there for a while, when you come back, you suffer accelerated aging or speed aging, so your brain cells really age a lot. So it becomes something like a more older brain cell. So we thought, well, that might be a model for Alzheimer's or a model for dementia. So we have this idea that perhaps we can use what we learn into microgravity to apply to treat diseases here on Earth. So that was the original motivation. Right now, we branch it out a lot. We are sending the second batch of brain organoids to the space. It's going to happen in December. You are all welcome to watch. I'm going to be posting like a link of the launch from the SpaceX in our Facebook. So you can see, I mean, some of the future missions will include mini brains from autistic individuals because we want to know more about how the neuroprogenitor cells, the cells that give rise to the cortex, which is a brain region that is affected on autism, how these neuroprogenitor cells replicate and migrate. So that's in a future mission.
That's so exciting. Thank you so much for sharing about that. Yes, if you would like to share the SpaceX link with me, we actually do a follow-up email to everybody who RSVP'd with more information on you and how to contact you and how to learn more about your research. So please send any of those resources, the link to the SpaceX missions, more information about your mini brains. Please send that over to me in an email and I'll share it with our community. That would be wonderful. And where can we learn more about your research if in the near future? Where's the best way we can find you?
Yeah, so as Dana pointed out, I mean, my lab is on the Sanford Consortium, which is close to the Glider Port and the Salk Institute. So I'm out. So anybody can reach me through email or to you guys. I mean, you guys put me in touch with lots of people, so you can do that as well. There is also another source of information that I think it's important is we have a TV show, and all the episodes are on YouTube as well. It's called UCTV, Stem Cell TV show. And I'm kind of the host where I walk through the labs and explain what's going on, including there are videos about these mini brains, how we plug those mini brains with robotic platforms, and the goals of our missions. What are the information that we learn from the autistic mini brains, things like that. So it's all there. I think it's quite rich, and I would encourage people to watch.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Muotri.
Dr. Muotri, I just wanted you to illuminate something for everybody in case it's not clear, because it took me a while to realize it. I just wanted to ask you two questions, and that is, can you share with everybody how many labs do you think there are in La Jolla? Just if you look at everything, like what do you think the ballpark of labs doing research is, the number?
I think we are talking about thousands. All kind of research.
But is there like I mean, my understanding is like 1,000 different labs, correct? When you look at Stanford, Burnham, Previs?
Yeah. For example, just at the Sanford Institute, we are 25 labs. The Sanford Burnham, I think they have like about 50 labs. The Salk has 50 labs. But then, I mean, we have all this biotech community that's huge, and we have lots of labs in there too. So yeah, I think if we combine everybody, I'm not so surprised if you're not like on the 1,000 labs here.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And then the times that I've been to other labs that are that do autism research, they have like maybe 2 to 3, maybe 4 people. I just want to make sure that's accurate. That's what I experienced. And now today you shared with us, you have 32 people working in your lab. And I just wanted everyone who's on this Lunch and Learn to realize that this is fully remarkable. That is, I can't even do the math, Dr. Muotri, how much more larger that is than the typical lab. If I had to answer a test question on this, I'd say the average lab has 2 people in it out of all those labs.
I think we are probably one of the biggest labs doing autism research in the world. Yeah.
There we go. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that. Dr. Muotri has 32 people in his lab, and he just said he's the biggest autism lab in the world, and he's so humble about it. And I just didn't want us to miss recognizing that. Dr. Muotri is fully incredible. And just whenever we've gotten the chance to be in your lab with you, it's there's no way to describe it. It's fully remarkable what you're doing. It's groundbreaking. Does anybody else have a question, Rebecca, that they want to ask Dr. Muotri?
Thank you so much, Dana. And we will continue.
We have just a couple of comments. Marilee, thank you, Marilee, for joining us. She said, I love this innovative idea to presume, respect, and elevate competence. Definitely. And Glenn says, thank you, Dr. Muotri. You're a hero to ATPF and the autism community for devoting yourself and what you do. And Karen said, what an honor to be on this Lunch and Learn and hear firsthand where science is headed in connection with autism. Very powerful. Thank you so much, Dr. Muotri. I think that's the perfect note to leave it on. And I would love to take a picture, a group picture of everyone. So turn on your cameras if you are able to, if you want to share your cameras, but I'll take a big screenshot. So we can take that. I'll do a countdown. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr.
Very nice. It was my pleasure. I love it.
Thank you, Dr. Muotri.
Have a very happy Wednesday.
Thank you, guys.
Everyone.
Take care, guys.
You too.
We hope to see
And I see you tomorrow.
Yes.
Yes, we can't wait. We're going to start working on our 221 conference with Dr. Muotri tomorrow.
Woo!
Yes.
Hope to see you all
All
next
right.
time. Bye.
Bye.